Welcome back to the new SEC podcast. Ole Miss historic season has just come to a close. Still so much to be positive about on the year. A lot of hype and momentum to bring into next year. What we're doing here at the new SEC podcast, we're talking Ole Miss report card. Looking at some grades for the season, we've graded their passing offense, their rushing offense, their defense, special teams, coaching. We put an overall grade together for this team. Wanting to break it all down. Randall, just at a high level before we get to the grades, what are some of your thoughts on the Ole Miss season and how it all went?
Yeah, Ole Miss season, a lot of positives, a lot to be high on. You beat Oklahoma in the regular season. You beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. You got to hold the trophy in New Orleans. You were a defensive stop away from being in the national championship. There's a lot to be proud of for this Ole Miss team, and we had a lot of fun putting together these grades for this team and overall this season.
Yeah, and what better grade to start out with than the thing that they probably did best this year, and that's passing offense. We'll jump right into it. We gave them an A+ here. It's not going to be that positive all the way through, so don't click ahead, but A+ on passing offense. One of the best, not in the SEC, but in the country. If you look at teams ahead of them in passing yards per game, it's FAU, North Texas, and Baylor. But what they did was be able to do it with so many different weapons, so many different guys. The pass protection was great. There wasn't a whole lot. No mistakes were really made when it came to turnovers. There's not really much to criticize from the passing game.
Not much to criticize. You had the newcomer of the year in the quarterback position with Trinidad Chambliss, seamless transition. And he was one of the most fun guys to watch in this passing offense. Games against Arkansas, games against Tulane, games against LSU, a lot of fun offensive, high-powered offensive games. And I think he had over 20 touchdowns on the year and only 3 interceptions. So just a really great passing attack. The emergence of Trey Wallace, big-time transfer from Penn State. I think I most recently saw their tight end declared for the draft as well. So just a very fun passing attack offense led by Trinidad Chambliss.
Yeah, it was huge. They crushed it in every game. And I think one of the things that they did well in the second half of games, his ratio, 14 pass touchdowns to 2 interceptions. They played 8 one-score games throughout the season, and what made it work in their favor a lot is because they didn't make a lot of mistakes down the stretch and were still scoring at a high clip late in games where you maybe see some teams take their foot off the gas or change their play style. They did a lot really, really well. Like I mentioned, the pass protection is really good, only about 1 sack per game, 10th nationally there. Crushed it. Now, you probably don't get Chambliss for next year. That's how it's looking. He's going to sue the NCAA right now as of the time of recording this, but you bring in Deuce Knight for next year. So I think there's a lot of exciting things pass offense wise to be ready for, going into next year.
Definitely a lot to look forward to for next year. You're bringing in a 5-star quarterback that had a good showing against Mercer. And like I said, it was really fun to watch this passing offense. So overall, A+. On the other side of the offense, led by the Belt Boys, the running offense, right? Talk about this rushing offensive attack and, why we gave him an A.
Yeah. Gave him an A here, just a peg down from the A+. The scoring aspect of their running game was incredible. Lacy, second in the nation in scoring, in rushing touchdowns, just behind Caleb Hawkins at North Texas. He was a weapon all season. At any point in the game, he could break one loose. Great in the red zone. They didn't run at the best yards per carry for the most part throughout the season. What they did was be able to wear teams down with the run. We'll continue to run. And they ran a lot on first and second down. 5.3 yards per carry when running on second down. That's what made this team so successful in all aspects of their game. It's because when it gets to third down, if you're running 5.3 yards on second down, you're setting yourself up in really manageable situations. And that's what they did throughout the year. So really, really good running attack.
Very, very good running attack. And it's hard to talk about these two sides of the offensive side of the ball without this offensive line. We saw them put up a pretty good performance against Miami, a good performance against one of the best D lines this season with Oklahoma. Run blocking, incredible. Pass protection, pretty solid. In this running offense, like you said, Lacy was a weapon throughout the season. Even Diggs behind them was pretty serviceable. Kawan is emerged to be one of the best, if not the best, running back in the SEC and a top running back in the country. And he played a huge role in a lot of these games against Tulane. A big 71-yard rushing touchdown against Miami, and a lot of breakout runs throughout the season.
Yeah, and excited to have him back as well. Like that's a huge, that's huge. It's exciting to have him back. Like you continue that momentum, you keep some of that key core team identity. If you do, end up losing Chambliss, like we said, that'll be great to keep into next year. The offense has what they did in points per game. I mean, one of the best in the nation at scoring. Offense overall, I mean, you give it an A or A plus if you were to combine these two. The flip side is where maybe they got hurt a couple times. The defense. Some maybe a little bit more critical here.
I would say it played a key role in those 8 games that were, 1-score games, right? The Arkansas game, the Georgia game where you gave up 13 unanswered points in the fourth quarter despite being up 10 points. The Oklahoma game, that was kind of a shootout, right? Oklahoma's offense was not necessarily one to be, going back and forth with teams. Yep. The highlights was they still had some guys, right? We talk about this D-line all the time with Eccles, and we talk about Perkins. The DBs were bend, don't break. But when they needed to make a play, they mattered. They're a very opportunistic defense from what I saw this season when it came to forcing turnovers and stopping drives in that way.
Yeah, they're not going to be like your Superman game-breaking defense. Like it's going to be more like you're going to have to beat us consistently throughout the game, and they make the plays when it mattered to try to get off the field. Just when you're playing really, really good teams, it was tough. Like the first Georgia game, the final Miami game, to where that bend don't break isn't necessarily going to work because they are able to find their guy. Like we saw Carson Beck, really good, eyes in that game, be able to find open receivers, them scheme around it, or even him use his legs when he saw those soft spots to run.
And that was where it kind of was the running defensive part, right? Back to that B-. This defense at one point was 14th in the SEC when it came to rushing yards per game allowed. Mark Fletcher kind of carved them up against Miami. The Georgia rushing attack had their way with them in the fourth quarter in that game, in the second half of that first game in Sanford Stadium. Just a tough on the rushing side of the ball. The passing defense was pretty serviceable.
Yeah, on the road, when away from home, 184 rush yards allowed per game. It's not great, when you're giving up almost 200 away from your home, because that's also taking, momentum away and things like that. It worked out for them this year, but I think as you go into the portal and you're going into the next season, there could be a shift though in team identity, because you went from a very offensive-minded head coach. How does the philosophy change as you start to channel in a defensive-minded head coach, and he starts getting his staff after the departures from, the staff to LSU?
And I've seen some comments on that some people felt they underspent in the portal when it came to defense compared to offense. And obviously Lane is more of an offensive mind, but they started to make some pickups. I think they had a linebacker from Southern Miss and, the defensive back, all American Athletic Conference defensive back from Tulane. So serviceable defense this year. We gave them a B-. It still was enough to get them to the semifinals in the Orange Bowl, but not the Orange Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, but B- overall. The other side of the football that is also important is special teams. And we saw some amazing performances from this kicking unit. But Hunter, talk about this special teams unit and what grade we gave them.
We gave them an A. This could be an A+. Like it really could be, and especially because of the field goal unit. Their field goal efficiency metric has them 4th in the nation. We saw that be a critical part of their playoff run in the Georgia game. Like what they were doing when kicking field goals, like multiple 50+ yarders. Like in the Miami game, like they were able to tee it up from distance, had the one miss, but electric field goal unit. The punt return unit left a little bit to be desired when it came to, metrics and returning. As far as setting them up with good field position, I think it's the only thing that bumps them down from an A to an A+, or from an A+ to an A for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and just having the ability to get 3 points, from a 40-yard line and 45-yard line is really helpful. And, their kicker played a key role in some of those games and throughout the playoff stretch. So it's tough to have a consistent punt return team. And it's also hard to find yourself in punt situations when your defense is okay, right?
Yeah. So
I think overall it's still an A. Right now, there's 3 A's on the board. You're passing the class, of course. And then last, there's coaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Coaching is a
discussed topic of this team throughout the season.
That's why it's a tough one to really grade, because you got to take everything into account. But I think where they're an A here is because of what they were able to do from continuity standpoint. That's how I'm looking at it. Like the continuity of the coaching change and how the players performed and how the coaching staff performed in the face of that, to one, the coaching of the first for the Lane Kiffin part of the season was great. Like that, great. A plus, sure. Then he leaves. You have the drama. Pete Golden takes over. I think everyone who listened to his interviews, like I love the way he talked about the team and the way he got the players bought in, and the way the staff seemed to pick up all the pieces. That's in A plus for me as well. Where I bump it down to an A little bit is maybe how some of the things were handled as far as like the university, the administration, and that aspect of it. Like,
which technically isn't coaching.
It's not but you're going down the stretch and like, is our running backs coach going to be here for the playoff game? Like, I felt like there needed to be some better calls made when it came to who is going to be coaching and how you facilitate that conversation. Because I felt like the longer that went on, the more it took away from the team. But from a coaching performance, A.
Yeah, coaching performance A, and not to call you out specifically. It's one of the, I agree, because there was no reason for this to be a week-to-week saga. To me, if you made a decision at the Egg Bowl and said, okay, Lane Kiffin, make your decision, right? Then it's, all right, if we're going to let your staff coach the team through the playoffs, let's talk about what that looks like between December 20th and January 19th. Like, we're playing with the possibility of playing in Miami. So there shouldn't have been a reason to have this, well, maybe, Frank can come back for this game, or maybe Weiss is here for these two games, but not the semifinals. I think you should have had a plan for all 4 rounds.
Because Lane didn't think it was going to happen.
It's probably what happened. He probably didn't think it was going to happen.
I mean, he seemed excited for it, but I know he was ready to get his guys back. I see it from all sides, but like the coaching did a great job. They brought in, making the call in the offseason leading into this to pick up a guy like Trinidad Chambliss. Like, so you had that backup. So when Austin Simmons did get hurt early, you had a guy to go, and it worked out perfect. Like, they made great decisions in that aspect, put a good game plan together. An A is great. And now you got a pretty good run of grades here, all in all for a really good season.
Yeah, definitely a great season. And overall, we gave them an A on the year. I mean, the only way they could have won the SEC was to go undefeated, pretty much, right? They only had one conference loss. Your conference loss was to the SEC champ. Then you redeem it in the playoffs. Overall, it's a great season, one of the best seasons, if not the best season at Ole Miss they've had in the modern era. A lot to be proud for, and they're fighting the good fight to get Chambliss back. You got a quarterback coming that people feel pretty positive about. You got the best running back in the country coming back next year, potential. If he's coming back, we'll see if he's the best. I expect him to reload on defense, and a lot to be proud for this year. So, Hunter, any final thoughts on these grades, the season, and Ole Miss as a program directionally going forward?
Yeah, I think they're headed in a good direction. We talked about who they're picking up in the portal in the offseason. Like, they're making a lot of defensive plays, like picking up some great DBs, safeties, and going to continue that. It's all in how you develop these guys now going into next year if you're Pete Golding, and how do you continue the momentum that was built over the last few years with Lane Kiffin. A great season, a lot to be excited about, just because it didn't end in a national title. A lot to be proud of. I think the team did great, and A is pretty sufficient for this team. I think they're a good defense away from being an A plus.
Yeah, definitely. And it's hard to put it all together, right? I don't know if there's any team in the SEC that is all A pluses across the board. It's not because there's not a team in the championship, but every team this year had holes. Like, it's going to be harder and harder to have the strong defense and the strong offense and the strong special teams and the coaching. If you got all those things and you're not one of the blue blood teams, your coach is probably getting poached or your players getting taken. So, Ole Miss fans, a lot to be happy for. We've really enjoyed following the season and the emergence of a lot of these key guys. Lacy is one of my favorite players to watch, and Trinidad Chambliss is one of my favorite players. I love the defense. So if you like content like this, we're going to keep it rolling here in the off season. We're going to do some draft coverage. We're going to do some special segments. A lot of good content coming up. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. As always, I'm Randall Jr. We got Hunter Ziesman. This is the new SEC podcast.